David Callahan wasn't an accountant. He just let his wife believe he was. At Thanksgiving dinner, Susan leaned toward Anthony and whispered in Russian, "He's too slow to notice anything past his soup."
And he still thinks I work late on Thursdays.
By the time he notices, the money will already be in our account.
Она понятия не имеет.
David understood every word. 2 years of mockery, all in Russian, and they had no idea. He smiled, passed the gravy, and let the silence do the work. After dinner, David excused himself to the study. There, a framed certificate hung, State Department Interpreter, 1987.
I spent 20 years dissecting conversations in hostile rooms, and they think I am a quiet accountant.
David decided to wait. He would gather every word, every date, every transaction, and when the time came, he would translate more than language. David entered his study, closed the oak door behind him, and lifted the old State Department photograph from the bookshelf.
6 years. She walked into my life at a fundraiser, saw a quiet accountant, and never asked enough questions.
He'd hidden his career beneath bland spreadsheets and tax returns, never speaking of the late-night translation crises or the hostile rooms. But tonight's dinner conversation wasn't just mockery. Anthony had murmured about transfers, shell companies, and a deadline.
They're not just laughing at me, they're moving my money into an account I can't touch.
In his mind, David replayed the Russian phrases, dates, account numbers, the name of an LLC registered in Delaware.
Anthony's holding company. He already has the conduit set up. They've been planning this for months.
David set the photo down, his hands steady. The old training kicked in. Observe, document, never react prematurely.
I won't confront. I'll transcribe. Every word, every transaction. Then I'll decide when to end it.
Before dawn, he had started a file, untitled, encrypted, and filled with the beginning of their ruin. The following Saturday, David placed a voice-activated recorder beneath the linen napkin before Susan and Anthony arrived.
They never watch my hands, too busy planning their escape route.
Over roast lamb, the recorder caught every number, every date. The audio file revealed Anthony detailing the LLC name, the transfer date, and a joke about forging David's signature.
They even laughed about how easy it would be to copy my signature.
The next day, David called an old State Department contact.
I need advice on authenticating covert audio for court.
The contact explained voice biometrics and how to preserve the chain of custody. Meanwhile, a discreet camera had captured Anthony slipping the LLC documents into his briefcase.
2 forms of proof. When this goes to court, they won't have a single defense.
On Tuesday morning, David walked into a forensic accountant's office on the 12th floor of a downtown building. The walls were lined with tax codes, and a whiteboard stood covered in financial diagrams. The accountant didn't ask why he needed the work.
Show me where they tested the pipeline.
By noon, 3 small withdrawals were circled in red, probes moving money into Anthony's shell company. They'd been testing the fraud for months, right under David's nose. The final report landed on David's desk by Friday. Every transfer, every date, every forged signature mapped. David's hand rested on the thick binder. He felt the weight of vindication. He wrote a note on his calendar. File for divorce. But he didn't call the lawyer yet.
Not yet. I'll wait until the evidence is so loud they can't whisper their way out of it.
The next Monday, David sat across from his lawyer and opened the thick file.
File it. All counts. Marital misconduct, attempted fraud, and the forensic report.
That afternoon, a process server handed Susan the summons at the front door.
This is absurd. He's paranoid. There's no proof.
Anthony received identical papers at his office and called his lawyer immediately.
We'll crush this. The recordings are fake. He's an accountant, not a spy.
Susan confronted David that evening, her voice dripping with manufactured pity.
David, I think you are having some kind of breakdown. We should talk.
David looked at her, calm as still water, and said nothing. Their confidence swelled. Still unaware the quiet accountant was the one who had already mapped their every lie in fluent Russian. The suppression hearing unfolded in a mahogany-lined courtroom, the air thick with tension. Susan's attorney argued the recordings were unconstitutional, but David's team had already filed the one-party consent ruling. The judge flipped through the precedents, then set them down. The judge's voice cut through. Audio and video evidence are admissible. The forensic report will be entered. The forensic accountant handed over the finalized report. Its findings now public record. Anthony's face drained white as the reality set in. That night, Anthony crammed papers into the office shredder, believing he could erase the evidence. A small security camera blinked red, recording every sheet. David's lawyer filed the tampering footage with the court before sunrise. The deposition date was locked. Anthony's career and Susan's settlement now depended on a man they still believed was deaf to their language. 2 days before the deposition, David walked into his lawyer's office with a single manila folder.
The recordings are in Russian. We'll need a certified interpreter during the deposition.
The lawyer started making a list of translators. David held up a hand.
Don't bother, I'll do it.
The lawyer's pen froze.
Before I was an accountant, I spent 20 years translating sensitive material for the State Department. I am certified.
He set his interpreter badge on the desk. The gold crest caught the light. The lawyer leaned back, a slow grin spreading. By noon, the court had approved David as the official interpreter for the deposition. Susan and Anthony would walk into that room, believing their words were safe. They had no idea the quiet man in the corner understood everything. The night before the deposition, Susan stood in the doorway, her eyes rehearsed.
David, I made a terrible mistake. Anthony forced the whole thing. I'll sign any settlement if you just drop this.
David's thumb clicked the recorder in his pocket, the tiny device capturing her rehearsed confession. He didn't raise his voice. Number. Susan's mask slipped, then hardened again as she walked away. Later that evening, Anthony called from his office, his voice smooth and calculated.
David, let's be reasonable. Drop the case and I'll cut you into the LLC. You'll walk away with more than you'd lose.
David held the phone, watching the recording app count the seconds.
I am not interested. See you tomorrow.
He ended the call and transferred the audio file into the encrypted folder. The trap was set. At dawn, David stood before the mirror, adjusting his black suit, no tie, the gold collar bar gleaming. He pinned the court interpreter badge to his lapel, the weight of it familiar after 2 decades.
2 years of whispers. Today I answer out loud, in a language they thought was safe.
He drove through quiet streets, the courthouse rising like the final piece of a chessboard. Security waved him through. The badge opened every door. The deposition room was already occupied. Susan and Anthony sat at the defendant's table, backs to the interpreter's booth.
They haven't turned. They still think their secret is locked behind a language they control.
David took his seat, adjusted the microphone, and slipped on the headphones. The clerk called the case number, and the recorder was placed on the table. The first file loaded. Susan smoothed her skirt, unaware the man in the corner was about to translate her ruin. The judge entered, robes flowing, and the room fell silent. "Please be seated," he commanded. The judge turned to the corner booth. "The certified interpreter will identify himself for the record." David turned his chair. Susan's eyes locked onto his face, and every drop of color drained.
David, you can't be.
He speaks Russian. He's heard everything.
Now they know. Let's begin.
The judge nodded. "Play Exhibit A. The interpreter will translate."
Yes, Your Honor.
The recording crackled. Russian voices filled the room. He's too slow to notice anything past his soup. David's voice came back calm and precise. He is too slow to notice anything beyond his soup. Susan's hand covers her mouth. Anthony's lawyer scribbled furiously, but the court reporter typed every translated word into the permanent record. The next line played. Anthony's voice in Russian. "The account will be ready by January. He won't notice until it's empty." David's translation was immediate, clinical.
He's going to translate everything. Every plan. Every insult.
Susan's attorney objected loudly, claiming the translation was prejudicial. The judge didn't glance up. Overruled. The translation is a direct rendering. Continue. Susan's shoulders shook. Her lawyer scratched motion for mistrial onto a pad, then crossed it out. David's tone never wavered as he translated the plan to drain $4.8 million into a shell company. Anthony's face turned gray. The polished executive looked like a cornered animal.
I am going to lose everything.
The recording clicked off. The court reporter stamped Exhibit A.
Only the beginning. 26 more to go.
David cued the next file. A recording from a Thursday dinner 9 months earlier. The speakers crackled with Susan's voice, low and intimate in Russian. Thursday is the only night he doesn't call. We can stay at the hotel until 2. Anthony's answer came through. Tell him it's a late meeting. Soon, there won't be any money left to worry about. The judge removed his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. This is beyond infidelity. This is conspiracy to defraud. Susan pressed her face into her hands, her weeping audible, even over the recording. Her attorney stood. Your Honor, my client needs a recess. David's counsel didn't rise. The evidence is unfolding. We object to any delay. The judge shook his head. Overruled. Continue. The next recording, named Anthony's CFO, detailing a plan to backdate documents and falsify board minutes. Anthony gripped the edge of the table, his career dissolving line by translated line. The clerk loaded the final incendiary file, Anthony's voice ordering the power of attorney gambit. David's translation was mechanical. All you need is a signature. The notary is ours. Once it's signed, the funds move.
Stop. He's twisting everything.
Anthony shoved his chair back, the legs screeching on the floor. His lawyer clamped a hand on his shoulder, but Anthony shook him off. The judge's gavel struck like a gunshot. That's enough. Another outburst and you'll be removed. Susan sat frozen, her last shred of credibility incinerated by the recording she'd once laughed through. David continued as if nothing had happened, cueing the next file without a flicker.
The prenup is ironclad. They'll leave with nothing.
The deposition pressed on, but the outcome had already been etched into the transcript. The forensic accountant's report landed on the evidence table with a heavy thud. Every fraudulent transfer was now public record. The judge leaned forward. This court finds probable cause for criminal fraud. I am recommending charges against Anthony Voss. A notification glowed on Anthony's phone. Anthony Voss terminated effective immediately.
The board threw me out before lunch. They won't stop until I am in prison.
He's finished, and my name is attached to every single document.
Anthony's posture collapsed. The polished executive was now a man without a job, a reputation, or a future. The judge raised his gavel. This deposition will end. Forward, the file for final settlement.
The prenup is still untested. She'll fight it, but the language is airtight.
Susan's hands trembled, but the settlement figure was still not in the ruling. The final page of the divorce decree lay blank, awaiting the judge's signature. The judge signed the decree with a single stroke, then read the settlement aloud. Pursuant to the prenuptial agreement and the evidence of fraud, Susan Callahan is awarded $0 in marital assets. She is also ordered to pay the petitioner's legal fees in full.
It's gone. Everything. I'll be destitute.
Susan's legs gave out. She slid down the chair, her sobs sharp and uncontrolled. David sat motionless, the weight of 6 years pressing on his chest. A single tear slid down his cheek, not for her, but for the man he believed she was.
It's finished. Now I need to walk out of here.
The gavel fell one final time, sealing the record of ruin. The deposition room fell into a silence heavier than any word could carry. David rose from the translator's booth, unclipping the gold badge from his lapel. He slid it into his jacket pocket without a glance at the defense table. Susan reached out as she was led past, but David raised a gentle hand.
No words left, just the quiet hum of a finished score.
He walked past the accused without acknowledgement. The courthouse doors swung open to an afternoon sun that felt like a reward. David stopped on the top step, filling his lungs with the crisp, free air.
27 recordings. One final translation. Now silence.
The weight of 2 years lifted slightly, and for the first time in months, his shoulders loosened. He descended the granite steps, one hand in his pocket, fingers brushing the edge of the badge. David parked in the driveway and killed the engine. The drive home had been a silent blur. He opened the glove compartment, slipped off the wedding band, and laid it inside without ceremony. Inside, the stillness felt different, emptied of betrayal, ready to be refilled. He walked to the living room and sank into his chair, facing the window.
6 years dissolved in an afternoon. It was never about the money. The wound was the ridicule.
On his phone, the encrypted folder now held the final scan, the $0 settlement decree.
She still doesn't know how many lies I cataloged in her own voice.
A faint smile crossed his lips, the first one that reached his eyes in months. The house was empty, but the weight that had pressed on his chest for 2 years was gone. He leaned back, closed his eyes, and let the silence hold him. A week later, a manila envelope slid through David's mail slot. Inside was the certified divorce decree. Paperclipped to it, a prosecutor's notice. Anthony Voss indicted. 3 counts of felony fraud.
Every fragment of audio, every forensic chart, it all held up. The law believed me.
He called his lawyer, his voice carrying a lightness absent for years.
Clear your evening. I am buying dinner for the team.
At a quiet restaurant, the 3 sat together. A forensic accountant, a defense attorney, and the man who'd outplayed them all. David raised his glass.
To the man they thought was deaf.
The other 2 laughed, but David's laugh was different. It came from somewhere untouched for years. David leaned back, the smile refusing to fade. The war was over. He had all the ammunition, and he'd fired every round. A month later, David stood in the doorway of a downtown language institute, a volunteer badge clipped to his collar.
The language they used to mock me. It's the first thing I want to give away.
Inside, a gray-haired former colleague from the State Department was already setting up a whiteboard.
I never thought I'd see you teaching conjugations to refugees.
The old friend laughed, and for the next hour they planned a course for immigrants, free, funded, and fiercely practical. That evening, he wrote a check for the exact amount Anthony had attempted to transfer and sent it to a fraud victims foundation.
He wanted to steal my money. Now it trains fraud examiners to catch men like him.
The donation was anonymous. David needed no credit, only the quiet knowledge that his silence had finally spoken louder than their whispers.
I spent a lifetime interpreting other people's threats. Now I am finally translating my own life.
The quiet accountant was gone. In his place stood a man who had taken their weapon and turned it into his shield. 6 months after the verdict, David landed in Moscow on a bright autumn afternoon. He walked the tree-lined boulevards toward the river, passing the embassy where he had once translated crisis briefings.
I used to decode threats behind those walls. Now I am just a man looking for a decent cup of coffee.
He chose a small cafe with metal tables spilling onto the pavement and sat where the afternoon sun could warm his hands.
Один черный кофе, пожалуйста.
The waiter didn't blink. To him, David was just another patron, ordering in flawless Russian.
No one here knows the quiet accountant. They just hear a man ordering coffee in his native tongue.
The black coffee arrived, strong and bitter, the way he had come to like it.
The language they tried to weaponize now serves no one but me.
David Callahan sat alone, smiled at the autumn light, and felt the final knot of betrayal loosen inside him. David returned home late, the quiet house welcoming him with the same stillness he'd left. He climbed the stairs and opened the closet, where the black suit still hung, unworn since the deposition. He took the jacket out, smoothing the fabric, and laid it on the bed. His thumb traced the gold collar bar. Remembering the morning he'd clipped on the interpreter badge, he unpinned the badge and held it under the lamp.
2 years of whispers, and this little gold shield turned them all into evidence.
He didn't need to wear it anymore. The weapon had been fired, and the translation was complete. He hung the suit back in the closet, but this time he left the badge on the shelf beside it. The door clicked shut, the sound soft and final. The house settled into darkness, and David slept without dreams for the first time in years. In the end, David Callahan reclaimed more than the fortune they planned to steal. He reclaimed the language weaponized against him, turning it into the key to his freedom. For 2 years, they'd whispered across the dinner table in Russian. Sure, the accountant was deaf, but he had spent decades in hostile rooms, decoding threats for the State Department. At the deposition, he sat in the translator's booth and made every mocking phrase echo back in English. 27 recordings poured out, each word building their complete ruin. Some men wear their secrets like a shield. David Callahan wore his like a weapon and never missed his mark. The gold badge now rests on a closet shelf, a monument to the day the interpreter spoke his own verdict. The light caught its edge, then dimmed, and the screen faded into soft darkness.